from Libra Management.
Yes, ma'am.
Libra Management in the house right now.
All right. Hello, Libra.
Yes.
Can you give a little background on Libra management?
Oh, Libra Management is a woman's own 8A business. Our fearless leader is Stacy Mollison. And Stacy also managed another company in North Carolina, the Amazon. She is, I don't know if she'll be on, but Stacy just was awarded one of the businesses, 500 businesses in, so
And what? What was
I
the
am the
award?
program manager for that company, and Stacy's an all-rounder. So we are here. A couple of my colleagues will be on as well.
Okay. Thank you. She won an award. She didn't tell me that. She won an award.
Yeah, yes, the 500. She won that award, I think, at the beginning of this year. Yes, she did.
All
I forgot
right.
to tell you that one. Her company did.
Very good. Very good. We have Mr. Carter. Welcome. Unmute yourself and give us a little background on who you are.
Good afternoon. I am Monique's father. I also sit on the board of the Snellville Downtown Development Authority, and I am the city council person for the city of Snellville.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your service.
Oh, I live in Snellville too, Mr. Carter.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
We have to meet someday.
Yes, we do.
Valerie Cersei, please introduce yourself. Miss Cersei? I can't hear you.
You might be multitasking.
Okay. Miss Moultrie, welcome. Introduce yourself.
Let's see if I can get my camera on. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, I should say.
Yes.
My name is Deanna Moultrie, and I am an area manager with Georgia Power and have worked with Monique for many, many years, and just being excited to be here today to support her.
Oh, thank you for joining us. I'm excited as well.
Hey, Deanna.
All right, it is noon, and I'm about being punctual. So Shayla is online. So Shayla, can you continue to let those in as they come in?
Yes, I will do.
And we're going to go ahead and jump into today's session. I'm excited because, again, my whole career has always been on the federal side, but I also understand how corporations and anyone that receive federal dollars from state and local, they have goals that they have to meet as it relates to being in compliance in awarding contracts to small businesses. I've always stated that those corporations, to me, and that's my experience, and Ms. Carter's maybe going to dispel that for me, is that it's kind of harder to get into the corporations than it would be marketing to federal agencies. So before we get into depth about that, let's just start with a little about you and how you started. I mean, your background, where are you from? How'd you get into this career path in this space?
Sure. First, thanks, Paula, so much for having me on today. Paula and I just connected. I don't want to say randomly because nothing is coincidental, but we met at a networking event and we just connected and have been going since then. So thanks so much, Paula, for having me on and introducing me to your network. So I am Monique Carter. I am originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. However, I have been in the metropolitan Atlanta area for over 45 years. I moved here in 1978. So moved away a few times because I did serve in the United States Air Force and was traveling around the world before I came back to Atlanta. But I will say my last almost 20 years have been spent with Georgia Power and Southern Company. Some of you have probably heard of that, may pay a bill to them every month, as I do. But my career started off there in human resources. So I worked in what they call talent acquisition or recruiting. I also spent some time in the sales and marketing organization for about 8.5 years. Then I moved on to supplier diversity, which was a dream job of mine, one of my dream jobs at the company. I really enjoyed that job, helping small businesses, recruiting small businesses, helping to develop them. Um, and we'll get into more details about that today. And then after that, I moved into a community relations or community engagement role, which was another dream role of mine at the company. Um, I really like being in a community. I really like helping people, talking with people, showing them how they can get sponsorships, grants, or what have you, and just being involved in watching different nonprofit organizations grow within the community and see the impact that they make within the community. Um, Fun side for me, I love to eat. I don't like to cook, but I love to eat and love going to new restaurants and having lunch and dinner with friends. I see some online who I've just recently dined with. I also love to travel. I have a 5 o'clock flight in the morning to Curacao, so I'm looking forward to that, to some warm weather and the beach. I enjoy spending time with my family. I am a big sports fan. I'm an inaugural season ticket holder for the Atlanta Dream, which I'm very proud of. I'm also a season ticket holder for the Falcons. Rise up. Let's go Falcons. And I'm a big supporter of women's sports. So right now during March Madness, I'm very much into the NCAA tournament on the women's side. Don't really watch the men too much, but do track it. And in my spare time, I am enjoying learning the game of golf, trying to be the new Tiger Woods out there on the senior tour. It is a very hard game to learn, but I enjoy the challenge. So
And you left Georgia Power. When did you retire?
December 31st of 2023. So a newly retired person.
Well, are you adjusting? Are you liking it? Are you glad or you miss it?
I miss my friends, but the day-to-day interaction. But again, I've used the word friends because we truly are friends outside of work. And several of them have joined me today on this call. So I still have that connection with my friends. We still hang out together. So I'm adjusting pretty well. I like having my own schedule, but adjusting well.
Okay. So in your role, you said one of the roles you were in the acquisition part of it?
Talent acquisition. So recruiting people to work for Georgia Power and Southern Company.
And then you also worked in the procurement part of it?
Yes, in supplier diversity, working primarily with small and minority-owned businesses.
So can you just go ahead and delve into that and what that really means? Because you hear supplier diversity, but I think it's so broad that people really don't know what it means and how it can benefit their business.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned earlier, most, if not all, large corporations, they have internal goals as well as goals with the government to meet as far as doing business with diverse businesses. and, awarding contracts to those diverse businesses. So as a supplier diversity representative consultant, we're responsible for recruiting those small businesses for the company, as well as developing them, showing them how to increase their capacity, preparing them to meet with the different business units in the organization that their companies line up with. So those are the primary goals and the primary responsibilities, high level, of what a supplier diversity consultant would do.
So when it sounds similar to what the 8A program does, which I'm familiar with, but maybe not on the same level. So if somebody wanted to do with, and I'm saying Georgia because I know that's where you work, but it's still the same process across, I would say, most corporations.
Right.
Are you assigned a person to work with that business? How are you getting those businesses, and how are you, or what time frame do you use to be able to work with them to get them to that point? Is that your sole job?
It is. It is primarily a large part of your responsibility. So we meet these business owners by being at different industry events, or let's say a GMSDC event, a WeBank event, a GWBC event, all the chambers, because small businesses are generally members of the local chambers. So we meet them at those events, or they just hear about us. Somehow they find our contact information. But we meet them, and generally, if for me, and I think you asked about being assigned, each one of us was assigned to recruit, per se, for different business units within the company. So let's say I had sales and marketing as well as IT. So if I'm at an event and someone that has an IT background comes up to me, I would, listen to what they have to say about their company and then set up a 30-minute initial call, and then we would go from there.
And so what would be some of the acquisitions that Georgia Power would look for?
As in terms of what type of companies?
Contracts that are they awarded? What type of industries would be most likely to do business with Georgia Power?
So Georgia Power's core business is to make electricity. So if you have a business that supports making electricity, we are definitely looking at you. If you are in the transformer business and the power line business, anything that has to do directly with making electricity, we're definitely looking for you. Now, of course, an electric company or any company has professional services that they need, IT. So if there is something, IT is very, very broad, but generally, most disciplines in IT, we would more than likely have a need for, as most organizations would. So you really have to know what that company's core business is, and then by building relationships with them, which we'll talk about, I know, find out what their needs are, or go onto the company's website, a part of doing your research prior to interacting with that company, to see if you could find out what their needs are.
Okay. And unlike the government, and that's why I say it's a lot challenging. In order to do businesses with these companies, are they mandated to have those MBE certifications, or what type of certifications are required for them to do business with corporations or Georgia Power?
So many corporations do require certifications, be it veteran-owned certification, small business certification, woman-owned certification. Many corporations do require those. Some companies even accept the LGBTQ certification. So that is also a certification that is given. Some companies allow you to self-certify, where you can just check the box on a form that they give to say that you're woman-owned, veteran-owned, minority-owned, small business owned. So that just depends on the company, and you could find that out pretty easily by probably going to the supplier diversity part on their website.
So do you all use SBA's database to also confirm if they're certified?
Say that again?
Do you also use the Small Business Administration's database to confirm businesses' certifications?
So specifically from my experience, no, but I do know that other organizations do.
Okay. MBEs, I think, again, what I found working with small businesses for these years, they'll tend to tell small businesses, you need to get this certification, 8A, woman-owned, MBE, DBE, WOSB. So people have all these certifications and not really have a clear understanding what certification belongs with the federal government, corporations, what are they looking for, or the DBE. So do you all deal with those type of certifications as well?
Yes. And I think, when some companies will tell you that the more certification boxes you can check, the better, but those certifications do cost. So I think you should be strategic in selecting as far as how you want to market your business, market your company. So for me, I'm minority, I'm woman owned, and I'm veteran owned. If you know, or after talking with a company, with a corporation, if veteran is something that they're maybe low in or need more veteran certified businesses to work with, or are specifically seeking those type of businesses, then that is what you want to market for to that company. You can still have those other certifications, but you know that they have a need to meet veteran owned small businesses. So that's how I would market my company.
And so what's the very first step? The very first step you would recommend to small businesses?
So the very first step, and I like to think of it as a dating game. With these corporations, it literally is a dating game, and they do not marry you at first sight. So the key to that, if you're not going to marry somebody at first sight, you're going to develop a relationship with them. So that's what you want to do. It's all about relationships. I think small business owners need to move away from being so transactional, and to moving towards building more relationships. So
Can you back up and define what do you mean by transactional? Let's get a little deep, real talk.
Yes. So for me, when I say move away from being so transactional, a lot of people will come up to supplier diversity representatives and be like, hey, I have this business, I do yada, 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 and I need to talk to yada, yada, yada because they need my service or product. Okay. That's not how it works. Again, we're not going to marry you at first sight. We need to get to know you. We all know just from our personal experience, before we are doing anything major with anybody or anyone, we're doing our research. We're doing background checks. We're checking the internet. We're checking social media. So the same thing applies for businesses. So that's what I mean by moving from transactional to building relationships. And to build those relationships, like I said, attending those GMSDC meetings.
You're using the acronym. A lot of folks may not know that's the government. let's talk what that actually is.
So GMSDC is the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council, and they fall under the National Minority Supplier Development Council. So they're here located right in downtown Atlanta. Stacy Key leads that organization. So definitely a great organization to get plugged into. They also do certifications.
What certifications do they do?
They do the minority, I believe they do the MBE certification, but
Mm-hmm.
their website easy to find and can provide you with that information. You also have the Greater Women's Business Council, which is here in Atlanta as well. Is it no, it's the Greater Women's Business Council. They're part of WeBank. And they have an office here. I believe Roz, can't remember Roz's name right now, but Roz, those who may know, you can chime in or put that in the chat, but you can look them up and they do certifications as well.
Okay. And so how do those organizations tie into the corporations and everyone that's leveraging those certifications?
So corporations support those organizations financially, as well as in other ways. So corporations are invested in those organizations. We look to those organizations if we have a need or are looking for a service or product. We can go to the GMSDC database. And people
Okay.
who are registered with them, we can find them that way. The same thing with GWBC. So yes, we are invested in those organizations, advocacy organizations, as we like to call them. And so yes, we rely on them.
Is there a particular procurement cycle that businesses should pay attention to? Like in the government, we know that their fiscal year is from October 1st to September 30th. Generally, the procurement cycle is from May to September. I know it is for this year. They've just been funded. The budget's just passed. So is there a specific time frame that you all are at more higher with acquisitions than not?
I would say no. Now, when you're awarded a contract, the contract terms could be 3 years, or they could be whatever the need is of that specific project. But there's not necessarily a cycle. It's all based on the needs of the business at that time. They do have projections where they can see a few years down the line, especially in our core business, what they're going to need. But I would not say from my experience that there's necessarily a procurement cycle.
Which is also interesting when I learned for you that they're not even advertised. So, right? So you
And
don't even know. It goes back to that relationship.
it goes back to the relationships. When you develop that relationship with that representative or that consultant at that company, they are going to keep you top of mind whenever opportunities arise. Me, I had an electronic file, I had a paper file. Whenever I would hear from my business unit that there was a need, I knew that I could always go back to my files and find someone who could meet that need, a minority supplier that could meet that need. So right, we don't publish it like the government, you can just go on a website and find it. That is not my experience in the corporate world.
Is there anything that you can look for previous history anywhere? Is that something in their annual report that you could look at to get a general feel of what types of awards have been awarded?
So we will list the different type of the different services or products that we typically look for. The annual reports are probably going to only tell you maybe how much money we spent with minority suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
It is not going to get down into saying we had an ad agency, but those things we do have a agency of record at the company, which most corporations do that they work with, although they have an internal group. They'll have an agency of record to help supplement the work that the company is doing. So we can talk about things that we typically source for, but we're not going to give specifics. Companies are very protective of their information.
Interesting. So what's that process like? How long does it take to build this relationship so I can get my name in the pot? How long do I have to date you? A year? 2 years?
So, there's no real time frame. We could meet today and I vet your company over a series of conversations and doing my behind the scenes research. And next week or next month, one of my business units could contact me and say, hey, Monique, we're looking for this type of business that has these type of core competencies. And I can say, wow, I just met a lady last month who does exactly that. Let me share with you her capability statement and get your thoughts on it. Ultimately, you have to remember that the decision does not lie with the supplier diversity consultant. It lies with the business unit. My responsibility is to get you to that business unit, to get you a seat at the table and in front of them. So it could be a month, it could be 2 years. It's dating. So some people date forever and never get married. Now we hope that's not the case here, but some people, some people like have a year rule. Oh, we're gonna date for a year, then we're gonna be engaged for a year, and then we're gonna get married. Same thing with company.
So once it gets to the business unit, once they've identified their need, what's typically the process for them in a selection? Do they have to have 3 quotes or 3 businesses in order to make an award?
Not sure that they have to have a certain number of companies, but they generally try to have small and minority companies represented in that sourcing. And so once it gets to the business unit, it's pretty much them working with the contracts agents and the other people, key folks in supply chain. Supplier diversity is still involved in that process. But again, we've gotten you to the table. We're going to continue to coach you through the process up until you get the contract and beyond when you get the contract, because we're still there assisting you, being a listening ear, guiding you, helping you avoid pitfalls. So when it gets to the business unit, and that you get invited to bid. In some cases, you may have to do a formal presentation to that business unit, depending on the type of product or service it is. And then they will make the decision from there.
And do you have to have on the government side, you're providing a technical proposal, a cost proposal, which can be intense based on the size of that contract. Is that the same process that you all would require? Or is it streamlined?
It's determined by that business unit and the contract side of the business. They can determine the different needs that are needed for each job. Some things can be, like you said, depending on the size of the project, can be pretty intense. A lot of documents with a lot of words. And then for certain projects, maybe not so much as intense, and the requirements could be different. Whereas if you're providing transformers for the company, that's going to be a little bit more intense because of the nature of it. But if you're providing, let's say, I don't know, you're providing print services to supplement our print services, maybe not so as intense.
Is there an average over the years that you worked previously? Is there an average size award for small businesses? 100,000 to multi-million? Is there a range that the average contract is for small business?
No. And generally, most companies will start someone off new that they're working with a small job just to see them, how well they perform. If it looks like they have the capacity to do bigger things, because a lot of people oversell their capacity, which is a big deal, overselling their capacity. So they start you off small just to see, okay, do they have the capacity to do this? So there is no financial cap per se, or minimum or maximum. It's just based on what we feel, based on how you presented your company to us, what we feel you can do.
How do you define small? You didn't put a dollar value with small.
Yeah,
So they start out small. What's a small?
I can't put a dollar value on it.
Okay. Because again, on the federal side, typically contracts that are 250,000 and below are set aside for small businesses.
Yeah.
So what are some of the common pitfalls that you've seen with small businesses working in this space?
Yeah. So I talked about one, overselling your capacity. Please be honest with your capacity when you're working with these large corporations, because they will find out very quickly whether or not you can handle it. And you don't want to put them in a position where they have to terminate your contract. So be honest about your capabilities and your ability to ramp up. Another one is your finances. A lot of companies look to these large corporations to be able to carry them. Like, oh, if I only get this contract with Coca-Cola, I am set and I'm going to rely on that. Well, large corporations don't like to see where you only have one contract, because if that contract falls through, what's going to happen? Your company's going to fail as well. So they want to see that you're doing business, that they're not your only provider of income. You want to make sure you have, like I said, all the cash flow to take you from one project to another. Your insurance, you want to make sure your insurance, especially if you're in providing a critical service to the company, they do have insurance requirements. So you want to make sure that you can meet those requirements. Being certified, we talked about that. Even if a company allows you to self-certify, the fact that you are certified by one of these advocacy organizations that I've talked about will show, number one, that you're serious about your business. And it also shows to the company, we know who you say you are. We know of a lot of companies that say they're women owned or minority owned, but really there's a man running the show, the woman is there in name only, or there's a non-minority running the show. And so when you are certified through those organizations, great care and very thorough investigations are taken to make sure you are who you say you are.
Okay, interesting. And with these corporations, is it when they're starting out small, could it be like a 6 month project or a year project, or typical? Is there a typical?
It isn't,
Yeah.
it just really depends on the nature of the job. So like I said, a lot of contracts typically can be for 3 years, but if it's a small time frame, it could be for a year or it could be for 6 months. It just depends on what's going on with that particular business unit.
And you said we need to be conscious of the access to capital and being able to finance. So what's the typical payout? How long does it take them to typically pay you once you invoice? Is there?
And that is determined also in your contract. They may say net 60 days, but we know as small businesses that may not work for you. So you can negotiate that in the process, in the contract process.
Okay. Yes, because that is a lot to carry.
Yes.
Whereas on the federal side, they have the Small Business Fast Pay Act, and and they have to pay within 30 days. Otherwise, the agencies have to start paying interest. So they have an incentive to pay
That's an
small.
incentive, yes.
So we talked about the first step is going and participating in these events and those corporate, I mean those nonprofits that you mentioned.
Mhm.
Second is being able to build relationships with multiple corporations. And how do you go about doing the market research to study each one of those corporations?
Yeah, so the first place is their website. First place you want to start that I would recommend. Also, they make their annual reports public, so you can read those. Um, Also, try to, if you know somebody that works within that company or in the supplier or supply chain organization, get to know them. If you're a small business, and you're out, you and I were talking before we got on about the Atlanta Black Chambers. If you are interacting with those organizations, corporations are going to show up at those events. We have memberships in those chambers. We have some people that serve on the boards of those chambers, especially the minority chambers, but all chambers. So definitely recommend all of those.
Okay. It's the same process. It's still about networking. It's still getting out, introducing yourself and building people by people.
Yep.
People by people. What would you say, in your experience throughout the years, would have been the largest or your most success story? What would be a success story for you?
Uh, well, let me see. Let me see if I can pick one. Um, okay, so I'm going to talk about one because one of the people is on this call today and has in time become a dear friend of mine. But I met this particular company. They basically help develop strategies like for change management. I guess that's the best way to phrase them. They develop strategies to help corporations when they're going through a transition. Um, and this company, I don't know how they found me. I can't even remember, but we quickly developed a relationship. Um, they were also, while developing a relationship with me, they were meeting people by being at these industry events and connecting with these people as well. Like I said, we're going to be at all these events. So they connected. I was able to get them in front of business units. They were able to secure meetings with business units. And in a very short period of time, they became a supplier to our sales and marketing organization. This company, the owners are involved with GWBC, the Greater Women's Business Council, which is an excellent organization. Attended several of their events during my time. But to this day, they continue to do work with the company. Now, someone who worked with that organization was finding a need she was ready to step out on her own. And she came and just sat in my cube just one day. We had a conversation and she was doing her work behind the scenes as well. So although she was a sub to this company, she was doing her work behind the scenes, meeting all the right people, and she in turn was also able to secure a contract within Southern Company Not sure, maybe to this day she still does. She's been very active in the chat. Thanks so much. So she has a lot to offer you as far as doing business with Southern Company, but her business has taken off just from her being diligent and doing her research and being engaged. Her company is taken off where she, is up for $1 million plus contracts out here. So that's a story because it started with a minority, well, not a minority, a woman owned business. And they were able to secure contracts, but this particular individual underneath them as a minority woman owned company was able to start her business and scale her business exponentially, where she's now out there doing big things. So I know several of you have been engaging with her in the chat, and I know she'd be more than happy to talk with you. I'm speaking of Kimberly Davis.
Hi, Miss Davis. Thank you for
Good
joining.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Maybe you can spend maybe 3 or 5 minutes talking about your experience and
Absolutely.
on that side. And yes.
I would love to. So, the way I got connected with Mo, a lot of times they tell you it's not a straight line, right? It's you got some curves that you have to go through to kind of get to where you're trying to get to. But as a member of the GWBC, I would attend their events. I was at one of their events called Tables of Eight, where I just so happened to have been at a table, with some ladies who were talking about, the type of work they do. And it was very similar to the type of work my company did. And so I just, introduced myself and said, hey, you guys, it sounds like we have synergies. And they said to me, we're always looking for subcontractors, let's talk. They introduced me to Georgia Power, brought us in as a sub, worked under them, several projects with sales and marketing team. I cannot remember how I got a hold of Mo, but somehow I knew she was the person to connect with from a supplier diversity perspective. Reached out to her and spent some time at her cubicle saying, hey, I'm working as a sub, how do I work my way up to get a prime contract? And she said, you're doing it the right way. Coming in as a sub is the right way to do it. You're going to learn our culture. We really like working with people who know how we work, understand the culture, and keep doing what you're doing. And I'll tell you, not more than 6 months later, I got a call from one of the business unit leaders who I had supported as a sub. And he said to me, do you own your own business? Because I never promoted that, right? I felt like that would be unethical to promote my own business as I'm subbing. And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. He said, we are really trying to do more business with Black-owned companies, because the companies I sub to was not minority owned. He said, we're trying to not just do minority, we want Black owned. And so I want to give you an opportunity to do business with us directly. And that's exactly how that's happened. And so I have grown to do business, not just with Georgia Power. I've done business with Alabama Power, and most recently Southern Company Gas. And I'm actually meeting with my Southern Gas client in a couple of weeks to talk about more business with them. So that's essentially, and look, I spent a lot of time bugging Mo, hey Mo, can we do lunch? Can we do lunch? But the one thing she always said to me was, she was like, what I really appreciate about you, your approach. You approach me as a human, as a person, and it's not always a sales pitch. It's getting to know me. And so we have developed a friendship. And in that, opportunities are just going to flow, but it's not, approaching it like a used car salesman, right? Like every time I see her, hey girl, what you got for me?
Yeah.
Never been that. So,
and what type of work was it, if you don't mind? What type of services were you providing?
So provided everything. It was mostly under sales and marketing, everything from workforce development, support, training, support. I actually even did a project with their Salesforce where we produced videos because the company had implemented a new process for their sales team, and they wanted to see how well it was working. And so we literally would be in the studio where you see Channel 2 News would show up at Georgia Power Studio. It was lights, camera, action, makeup to interview the sales
Wow.
team on this new sales process so they could spread the word throughout the company. So yeah, so a lot of operations type projects, workforce development, training. And the beauty of getting into an organization like that is when you get in and do a good job and they like you, they start throwing all kinds of stuff your way. And so it's just a matter of you executing.
Thank you. It's the same thing with the federal side. Once
Yes,
you get in
yes,
and
yes,
perform,
yes.
you're good. But I tell people to be careful because people will always want to get to the contract side and not know what they're doing. On the
Mhm.
federal side, you get in and you mess up, you can't get back in. It's over. You're
Yes,
defaulted.
yes,
So
absolutely.
congratulations, Ms. Davis, on your
Thank you.
success.
Thank
And
you.
are you just strictly corporations? Or are you on both sides? Who?
Miss Paula, you know me. If I turn on this camera, you're gonna know me. I'm DPS.
Okay.
So you came, yeah, when you came to our cocktail reception at
Yes.
8A.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I started out commercially and I expanded into the federal space a few years ago and worked to kind of get all of my, certifications. I actually just got a top secret facility clearance.
Mm.
And 8A, I'm almost hub zone. And so really my dream is to just kind of have a good balance of both commercial and federal government, to kind of balance my portfolio.
Very good. Congratulations. And thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, I'm going before I open it up for anyone else with questions. Do you have any other things that you might want to add, Monique?
No, but just like Kim said, I would definitely say move from being transactional to building relationships because it is all about relationships and it literally is a dating game.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for some questions. Anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself. Anyone? No questions?
We had a lot going on in the chat.
I don't have
Okay.
a question. I don't have a question, but this is Antoinette Jackson, and I actually am a part of the Southern Company family. And I just wanted to shout out to Monique for doing a phenomenal job today. And I actually, Kimberly, I don't know if you remember me, but I met you as a result of Monique as well. And so Monique is
I sure do.
a major connector. And let me tell you, she is a wealth of resources, as well as, I had a chance to work in that area as well. But just delighted to be a part of this conversation. I learned a lot more even being a part of the company as a result of Monique sharing today. So just shout out to you, Ms. Watts, for hosting this phenomenal lady and all of the insights that were shared today.
Well, my goal with GPI is to bring all the knowledge from the inside that's now left into this ecosystem that we're bringing together. So again, corporations is her strength, and she knows how it works from the inside out, that she's going to be able to help our businesses, which in turn helps our community. We both have the same mission and passion and making sure that we get a piece of the pie because we do belong a part of America, although they don't want to recognize it. We have built America. So Southern Company incorporates which states?
Ooh, so before we acquired the gas company, we were just basically in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. We're no longer we're at least the electrical part is no longer in Florida, but we were basically Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama. Now that we've acquired the gas company, that just opens up more opportunities to suppliers because we're all under one big family umbrella, the Southern Company. So we've got Illinois, we've got, I believe, North Carolina and South Carolina. We've got, help me out, y'all, Southern Company people on the phone.
Did you say Illinois? Did you say Illinois? Oh,
Yes.
did you get Illinois? Okay, yeah.
Yes, yes. So our footprint has expanded. And if you go to southerncompany.com, that footprint is going to pop up right for you. So definitely check out the Southern Company website as well as Georgia Power. And they do have a section specifically for supplier diversity. I believe they call it supplier inclusion and sustainability now, but you'll be able to find it.
So how has the affirmative action case affected these corporations and working with minority-owned businesses?
That's an interesting question. I just was at Grady's Supplier Diversity Summit that they had a couple of weeks ago, and they had a whole session on that. I cannot speak for because I'm not in that organization, so I can't speak for, and I'm not sure if anyone is on here from that organization. I don't see their names. So I can't really speak for how that has affected them, but based on what I heard at the Supplier Diversity Summit from Grady, I think people are maybe getting a lot up in arms without really knowing what that is really saying. So I would say do your research and make sure you understand prior to saying, well, supplier diversity is going away. Do your research and don't just read the headlines.
So every corporation will have a unit that's entitled a supplier diversity unit. Is that how that works? Just like on the federal side, every agency will have a representative that's a small business specialist for that agency. So is it similar on the corporation side?
That we would have a
Direct a gatekeeper that's part of the supplier diversity pool. Does every corporation have a gatekeeper like you? You're a gatekeeper, as I see it.
So most companies do have a supplier diversity organization. Is that what you're asking, Paula?
Correct.
Yes. Now, Georgia Power Southern Company probably has like the largest supplier diversity team I've ever seen. You would be amazed that there are a lot of large corporations out there and they may have one or two people. I know some large organizations, they have two people and they're doing all of that work. So yeah, and that's what makes Southern Company such an award-winning supplier diversity team, because we do have a good sized team and we are able to be more effective in our engagement with suppliers. We all are assigned to different business units. And so we're working on behalf of those business units, recruiting and developing small business owners to be able to do business with them.
And what type of reporting requirements do you have to adhere to as it relates to the federal government? Because again, I know you're getting federal dollars. Somebody's watching you.
Yes, and we do have to report to the government. I want to say the GSA. And we do have goals that we set with the Small Business Administration, and we set those goals as well internally, but it is not published and it is not discussed with the public.
Okay. So I'm going to give my small business owner another secret here. Even though you all can't discuss it, on the federal side at the Small Business Administration, there's a person that's called the Commercial Marketing Representative, a CMR. That person is the one that monitors you guys. They're going to be the ones that's going to be able to let you know which corporation did not meet their goals. So for me, it's starting at that little quiet position that no one ever heard of to find out and build relationships with them. because they keep a stack of subcontractors capability statements. So when those corporations say we can't find anyone, or they're not meeting their goals, they can provide capability statements to those to those corporations. So we're watching on the other side of it, even though you're not telling it publicly. There is a way to find out, because in the end, it's still public dollars.
Right. And small businesses can use that to leverage in their relationships with those corporations. Now, you don't want to go up to them and be like, I heard that y'all not meeting your
Yes.
goals and you need to do business with me.
Yeah.
I would not recommend that, but use wisdom and you could leverage that information.
Absolutely. And I would recommend you all go to usaspending.gov. You can actually put in whatever corporation that you're targeting and see what type of federal dollars they've been awarded. I was shocked when I looked in and saw a contract. It was actually issued to Rolls-Royce to provide vehicles for the government. So in the federal space, it's not limited. The government's going to buy everything, whereas you guys are pretty centralized in your scope of work, correct? Or do you have the same needs as every other agency, administrative services, PR, communications, not just electrical focus? Does that make sense?
Yes, we do. I mean, at the Southern Company, we have pretty much every type of occupation there. I mean, people may not even realize it, but we employ pilots. I mean, so
Wow.
we have a wide range of opportunities. It's just all in the timing and what the business needs at that time. But you can always make the connection and continue to build a relationship with that company because you never know what's going to come up.
All right. I think,
Hi,
yes.
I
Hi,
have a
Stacy. And congratulations on your award that I'm just hearing about from Maryland.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Monique.
Hi, Stacy.
Hey, and I think Kim was talking. Hi, Kim. I just saw her last night.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had a
Okay, my question for Monique was, do you think that the leadership development programs at the specific companies have an impact in terms of vendor network, having an easier way into a vendor network if you participate in a particular company's leadership program?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Stacy. That was one of the things I wanted to mention. Yes, definitely find out about those development programs that these corporations have. A lot of them, there's no charge for them, and you can get plugged into them. And yes, number one, you're already there with that corporation, right? And so while they're teaching you not how to do business just specifically with their corporations, but corporations as a whole, they're definitely seeing you, the work you're putting into it, and generally they assign you a mentor within that company, based on what the service or product that you provide, and you have inside information into that company. So yes, I definitely think it's beneficial to everyone to seek out those development programs, because I think it does give you an extra leg up in knowing what the needs of that company. And you have a mentor that's right, assigned from that business unit, working side by side with you for however long the period is, 18 months, 12 months. Absolutely. Good question.
And can you give an example of a development program in those corporations? Again, that's a whole different language for some of us.
Yes. So many corporations have a supplier development program where it's an internal program. And what they do, they take high potential small business owners, minority business owners, and invite them, or they either have an application process where you are invited or can apply to participate in those programs. Generally, they pair you, from my experience, they pair you with a mentor based on the type of business that you have. And that mentor is assigned to you along with the supplier diversity rep, where they are working with you over that period of time, grooming you, making sure your capability statement is up to par. We didn't talk about that, but that's something key. Making sure that you know how to scale your business, making sure you have the appropriate business plan in place, teaching you how to do your PowerPoint presentation and making it a nice presentation. You don't want to say you're a marketing agency and then you have a capability statement or a PowerPoint presentation that looks like I'll put it together. It's not going to fly. So those programs are definitely, we have so many success stories out of them. One guy comes to mind just now where I'm not even sure he was in the program, but we took an interest in him. And every time we would go to his site and make a suggestion on what he needed to do in order to better position himself to do business with us, he did every single thing. And when I tell you, within a very short period of time, this man's business grew exponentially to the point where he was able to offer his employees benefits, 401k program, vacation time. Because you know, a lot of these small businesses, you can't do that. But he was able to grow his business to doing that. And he was featured as one of the success stories for Southern Company. So definitely recommend those programs.
Thank you. Thank you for going into more depth about that. We are coming to the closing hours. I was so excited to interview you. I forgot to do some housekeeping so that everyone can know a little bit more about GPI and what we're getting ready and the events that we're having coming up. We're in the process of creating a private Facebook group for the community. Please put your information in the chat if you're interested in joining the Facebook community. It's all about networking, connecting, and supporting each other. That's what we do here at GPI. Again, I always like to recognize our winners from the cohorts that have actually won contracts. Ms. Bowie won her first contract in January while in class, and Mr. Tucker also won his contract. GPI graduation is Sunday, June 30th at 3 p.m. Please save the date. Information session regarding the next cohort, which will start April 10th, is tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. So if you know someone that's interested in getting in this game and understanding it from both a business side and SBA side, please invite them to join our webinar. We've also have a self-paced class now where you can take it at your own pace and it's recorded and you can participate in our office and lab sessions on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The April 10th cohort is going to be led by Mr. Farmer, who has over 30 years in the IT industry up in DC. So the goal is everyone bring in their knowledge to the table so that we can build out our community. For those of you that have completed our program, Attorney Chandler will be kicking off her bidding on steroids June 1st. You will be submitting 10 live bids within that month. We've had a lot of success for those who have participated in that program and won some contracts, even before completing the boot camp. We have, again, Ms. Stacy Mollison and Labrisha on a panel in May, where we're going to talk about how they navigated the federal space and won contracts. And if you missed the one on May 2nd, with my NARAB family, we're going to repeat on Saturday, May 4th. So it's time to get engaged, and let's win some contracts. Now is the time. Now is the time. Between May and June, between May and September, the government has a whole lot of money to spend, and we want to make sure you're in position. Thank you again, and thank you, Monique, for sharing your wisdom. Monique and I are working together to come up with a training program so that you are prepared to begin to market to corporations. So I'm excited about that. We'll let you know as she continues to move along with that. And thank you again. Was that great? Everybody give Miss Monique a hand, and thank you again for taking the time to impact our community. Do you have any last words of wisdom for our small businesses?
I don't. I would just like to say thank you for having me, Paula. I'm looking forward to us doing big things together here in the very near future. And thanks to everyone that joined today. I really appreciated it. And I hope to connect with some of you after this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right,
Bye-bye,
thank you.
everybody.
That's awesome.
Happy Easter.